Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and we are once again coming to you from Hatch in downtown Fairhope. We appreciate Rick Miller opening up his space to us, and if you want to find out more about what those guys do, you can go to hatchfairhope.com. Our guest today is Matt Simpson, and he is currently the state representative for State House District number 96 and also an attorney with Davis & Fields. And Matt, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks for your time. And look, this is going to be asked kind of tongue-in-cheek, but after the debate last night, I've got to ask this question. And for those of you who are listening to this in real time or even, after the fact, the first presidential debate of the 2020 election was held last night between Trump and Biden. Train wreck, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about politics here. I'm just talking about it was awful, in my opinion. So a calling, I know, to be in politics, but what in the world possessed you to want to run for the state house, to be a state representative and to throw yourself in what's got to be a thankless job a lot of times?
It is. It really is. I think something has to be a little off about you to try to get into politics, to be perfectly honest.
I didn't want to say that, but I'm glad you brought that up. But anyway.
No, it's an opportunity to help people. There's two ways you can look at this office. You can look at this office as an opportunity to help yourself or an opportunity to help people. And one thing I've tried to focus on is helping people. You can be an intermediary between the public and resources and trying to say, hey, there's somebody that needs some help and there's somebody that wants to offer help, and you're able to connect those two together. That's a lot of what we do. You think about when you picture politics, or when I pictured specifically being in the legislature, you think about, we're going to argue policy and we're going to argue about this stance versus this stance and these great high-minded discussions and debates. That's not what happens at all. That's not how this works. So sometimes we do debate things on the floor. Sometimes we do debate things, to try to help people that way. But most of the time it's really just trying to be a connection to allow people to get the help that they need, the resources out there, whether that be something that the state offers or whether that's something that a private company offers through grants or things like that. It's just a matter of just putting people in touch with other people and using those resources to help that way.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was being a little bit facetious when I asked that question, but I do think it's a calling, and I think it's a noble calling, and I do firmly believe that, pick your number, but 95, 98%, whatever that number is, of people are in it for the right reason. So I appreciate that. Did you always think you wanted to be in politics? I mean, how did that come about?
I've always been interested in politics.
Okay.
I would say, I majored in political science in college.
Okay.
When law school, I was on the student honor court, things like that. It's something that's always interested me. It's something that I've always, again, you kind of have to have that screw a little bit loose, no matter what you're doing, to be in politics. And it's something that I've followed through. I have a passion for being involved. I was involved in college Republicans when I was in college. I was the chair of the Young Republicans in Baldwin County. And then I became chair of the county Republican Party. And it's just kind of one of those things of, as you see opportunities move up, it's a chance to serve. And I believe in that fully. I believe it's a chance to serve the people. And I've always, no matter what I'm doing with our career, and that's what my wife as well, who I know, she was a guest on the podcast, so happy to be the second Beth Simpson to be on this podcast.
Right.
We've always made decisions based on not money, but what do we feel we could do to help best serve the community. She's the executive director of the United Way.
Right.
When I had an opportunity to join the DA's office as a prosecutor, what I felt the opportunity was to help the public, to help that process. So it's thankless, like you say. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of phone calls that say good job, but there's a lot of those emails that come through and say, how could you do this? How could you say this? How could this happen? So, it's an opportunity to serve the public, and that's what I view it as.
Well, you obviously have a servant's heart, because anyone who goes to law school and then chooses to spend the first 12 years of their career in the DA's office, when I'm sure a lot of your classmates were going to work for, the big private firms and that kind of thing. And let's be honest, I'm sure they made more money than you, right?
Absolutely.
But I dare say they may not have been as fulfilled as you were in your chosen path.
No, and I miss that part. I miss that part of being there for the people. And I'm still advocating for the people and fighting for the state of Alabama, just in a little bit of a different role right now. But no, you're right. I tell everybody, if you're trying to get into politics for money, you're in the wrong business for the wrong reasons. And those people, there are people that are there that fall into that category, and a lot of times they get found out very quickly, and there's some type of investigation of some sort. Right. So, and there's bad apples in every group. And look, no matter where you go, there's going to be somebody that's just not doing the right things for the right reason. Politics gets the limelight. Politics gets the attention, and it should. But a lot of the people up there are just doing the right things for the right reasons. And you see it and you say 95%, like I think you're pretty close to that. 95% of the stuff that we do, we work together. We cross party lines. We cross geographic lines. It's everybody coming together and work on it. Now, about 5% of the stuff we disagree on, or 5% of the stuff is the aggravated stuff, and that gets all the headlines.
Right.
That gets all the attention. That's what people focus on. There's not really a newspaper story that's going to get any clicks if somebody says Republican and Democrat work together. But if somebody says, can you believe what that person said about that person? Well, there goes all the clicks. There goes all the media, and that's where the cameras go. So I try to do what I can, not for the glory and not for that recognition and not for the press. But what my goal is people say, he's trying to do the right thing for the public. He's trying to serve the people of the district. He's trying to serve the people of the state of Alabama. And if I lose in my election because people thought I didn't get in the press enough or I didn't do enough to try to promote myself, well, then that's just the way God wanted it. And that's all you can ask for. So end of the day, when you come home, this job doesn't define me. It's not who I am. I don't want people to come back and say, oh, well, he was a representative. I want people to say he was a good guy. And if whether I'm in office or not, if they say I was a good guy, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's great. Well, let's talk about leadership for a second. So talk about leadership. I mean, I say leadership. What's your definition? What do you think makes a good leader? And what have been some of your experiences with good leaders and maybe even bad leaders? And I'm sure you've had probably plenty of both.
Learning from the experience of both good and bad it's kind of gotten me where I am today. No matter who you're having a conversation with, who you work for, or who you're dealing with, or who you observe, you can pick up positives and you can pick up negatives. Not everybody is a pure negative, and not everybody is a pure positive. Yep. You can say, I like the way that person did that, or I don't like the way that person did that, and you could pick up that and kind of make this collage, if you will. And it's not a single individual that I would say I've learned my leadership from. It's a collection of do's and don'ts picked up along the way. Yeah. I'm one of those leaders eat last. That's what I like to try to focus on, is help your other people around you, help the people be there, and they'll recognize it. If you're constantly looking for glory, to have somebody pat you on the back, if you want people to follow you only because you're you and only because the end goal is making you better, I don't think that's good leadership. Yeah. I don't think that's productive for anybody. I don't think you get the buy-in for people. But if you have a goal or a mission or some type of ideal that is bigger than yourself or bigger than personal aspirations. I've worked under 3 different district attorneys. If the goal is to make the district attorney's office better, to support that badge and to support that shield, it goes so much further than if you're saying, I want to make the district attorney themselves better. Right. Yeah. And the people buy in, and that camaraderie is there, and that morale is so much higher. And I've been in those places where you're like, this is a good person that's doing for a good cause, and I want to do what I can to help that person. And I think if you also look on trying to make the people who follow you better, and make them better than you, that's a great goal to have and to aspire to. I don't want, you want people to say, I have my own dreams. I have my own goals. I've been in offices where they've said, no, you work for me. This is what your goal is. This is what your priority is. And I've been in offices where they say, you want to go do this? Let me help you do this. How can I help you achieve your goals? And the atmosphere and the camaraderie in those situations is so much different.
Well, Lee Lawson was on last week from Baldwin EDA, and he made that specific point about empowering those that are on your team or that you're, quote, leading. And the most successful leaders, in my opinion, in my experience, have been those who have been successful in empowering those on their team, right?
Absolutely. I think if you can set ego aside, put your own person for what's good for your company, that's tremendously going to help you more so than anything else. Yeah. If you have people that say, if they can come out and say, you know what, I learned so much from this individual who was my supervisor or who was responsible for him, it makes you look better in the long run. But if you just want people to say, I'm in charge and I'm all powerful and I'm all knowing, you're never going to get that buy-in from the group.
Yeah, no doubt. That's good stuff. Let me ask you this. So your leadership view or your philosophy, how has it changed over the years, or has it? I mean, when you look back to maybe when you were in high school, going through college and maybe even law school, when you thought of a leader or leadership, has your perspective changed from then to now, especially being in your role and working with the DA's office and now in politics? Has that shaped your view any?
Yeah, it's changed tremendously over time. You have this, and I'm trying not to go too political here, but you have this vision of what a successful business person would be or a successful leader. And it's this vision of power and authority and some type of like, ooh, that person just walked in the room. Growing up, you see this stuff and like, ooh, that's somebody that's important and gets through stuff. As I've gotten older, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that person that people are just like, oh my gosh, don't make eye contact with this person. You hear horror stories about politicians that have drivers that you're not allowed to speak to. And if you're walking down the hallway, you're not allowed to make eye contact with. And you hear some of this stuff and it's like, you got to get over yourself. The end of the day, this spot's going to be here. I can tell you, as chair of the Baldwin County Republican Party, we were able to bring national leaders down to Baldwin County for dinners. So we had a dinner with Ben Carson. And Dr. Carson was the nicest individual. He showed up on his own. He didn't have a driver. He got out of a taxi. I kid you not, down here. Got out of a taxi, said, okay, I'm here from this time to this time. Where would you like me to stand? What would you like me to do? What can I do to help you? There were no crazy demands. There were no big ask of what you have to do. And you see that, and you see the genuineness and the authenticity of that as a person. And you're like, wow, that guy is something. That guy is great. And we've had other people, and I don't want to say, but we've had other people who have extensive riders and they have handlers, and you have to make the handler happy and you have to make that person happy. And they say, you're allowed to do this and this from this time and this time. And you're never going to have that control in the world. You're never going to be able to control every detail. The only thing you can control is your response to how things handle. And those people, that's what I want to be. I want to be somebody that I can't control what you do, or I can't control what I want you to do. I can only control how I respond to that situation. And my response in that situation would hopefully lead people to say, that's somebody that I would like to follow. They tell you all the time, everybody wants to be a leader, but if you can't get people to follow you, you're just a guy out for a walk.
That's true. I love that. And the word genuine stuck out to me. I think that's a key. I mean, when you said that, I was thinking back over my experience, and the most genuine people were the most easy to trust and to follow.
Absolutely. Establish that relationship. Everything can't be work related. And if you want to have a good environment, just stop by and say, hey, how was your weekend?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much it meant to me to have, when you would have a leader that would walk in and be like, hey, how's the family? How the kids doing? Is everything going okay with you? It makes you want to do more for them. It makes you want to be more bought in and more involved and feel like that person cares about you. You have to be more than employee number 8. You need to be able to make that person a human and make that person feel like they're more than just a thing to you that's just there for your value. I've seen that on both sides. I've had leaders that would come in and sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, let's go to lunch, or hey, let's do this, and try to build you up. And I've had those that send an email that say, you were at your desk at 8:02 a.m. Why were you not here at 8 o'clock? The workday starts at 8 o'clock. And the personal relationship of that makes all the difference in the world. If you want somebody to say, you know what, I'm going to work late this weekend, or I'm going to work hard, or I'm going to do this. If you want them to build up for the greater good of the whole, you have to buy into them as well. Yeah,
no doubt. All about relationships for sure. So along those same lines, do you have anyone that you would consider a mentor, or maybe not, if it wasn't a formal mentor, someone that you can point to that's had an influence on your life, either professionally or personally, that you learned a lot from?
I have so many. The list is long. When I was in high school, I was a runner at a law firm, and it was working for Willie Huntley, who's an attorney in Mobile. And I worked through him as a runner when I was in high school. After I completed my freshman year of college, I came back, and that summer I worked at his firm. Then when I went to law school, that first year of law school, I came back and clerked for him for a year. And then after that, when I graduated law school, I came back and worked for him as an associate, as an attorney for a year. The people that are there for him, the people that in his business are people that have stayed around for 20 and 30 years. It's not a fly-by-night, I'll fix the next person up and get there. Willie Huntley has been tremendous to me. I can tell you, I never actually worked for Dave Whetstone, who was a DA in Baldwin County. But I hear wonderful stories about Dave Whetstone, and I hear some of the best topics that I've had, and some of the stuff I still discuss are things you hear about from Dave Whetstone. And one of the things that he tells everybody is keep your motives pure. Even if you make a mistake, even if you're doing something, as long as your motives are pure at what you're doing, everything will work itself out.
Yeah.
Everything will be fine. So Whetstone, even though I never worked for him, was a leader that I looked up to try to find. You know, I had an opportunity to work under Judy Newcomb. I've had an opportunity to work under Ashley Rich in Mobile. I had an opportunity to work under Bob Wilters in Baldwin County as the DA. So you see that, and you see bits and pieces of everyone and say, okay, I really like the way she did this. I really like the way that this was done. Or you look at it and say, that's not how I would do it. And if I was ever put into a position of some type of authority, I would do it differently. So it's easy to say, I don't like this person. I never got along with this person, or, oh, I have problems with this person. But that person may have taught you something little that you can carry on for the rest of your life to make you better and to make you a better leader. And so that's why I'm very grateful for the time I've had under each of those DAs and picked up something from every one of them.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about House District 96 and kind of what your vision is for this area. Now, you've got your hands full because your district really represents a portion or all of the city of Daphne, city of Spanish Fort, the unincorporated areas of Bromley, Stapleton, and Malbus. And so some of the fastest growing, or maybe the fastest growing area in the state of Alabama, and one of the fastest growing areas in the southeast, right?
Absolutely. And it's got a little sliver of Mobile County as well, a little portion of Saraland, a little portion of Satsuma, a little bit of Chickasaw, and a little bit of Creola, as a matter of fact. So it's I like to tell people, it's anywhere that Randy Davis, who had this job before me, it's anywhere he ever lived or taught is in that district. It's been interesting to see. It is a tremendously fast-growing pace of area that we have, too. So it's working on both sides of the bay, working to try to make sure you're up to date on what's happening in Mobile County, what's happening in Baldwin County, and things like that. So, yeah, it's a great district.
So why is the growth so explosive down here, do you think? Because it absolutely is. I mean, it is phenomenal when you look back 10, 15 years. I mean, how the population has grown, businesses, industry, that kind of thing. What is that attributable to, do you think?
Because it's such a great place to live.
Yeah.
I know that's cliche.
No,
but
true.
But it is. You know, you have Baldwin County schools are such an attractive area. I grew up in Mobile. I went to Mobile County Public Schools. One of the reasons we're in Baldwin County is because I didn't want to send my kids to Mobile County Public Schools. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. And working at the DA's office, you don't make enough money to pay for private schools, to be perfectly blunt with you.
Right.
So we set up and we said, look, where do you want to establish your family? Where do you want to grow roots at? If you want to help build a community, what community do you want to build? And we have such a great opportunity down here with shipbuilding, with Austal, with the aerospace industry that we're working on, with so much stuff down here. I think people are starting to shine a light on South Coastal Alabama specifically and saying, okay, there's a lot of opportunities going down there. They're coming along and moving further along and making advancements. And you come in and you look and you say, wow, okay, if I'm going to set up down in coastal Alabama, where am I going to set up? As a family, where do you want, where are the schools good? Where's crime not a problem? Where can you have the infrastructure that you need to get around? And that specifically the district I live in, District 96, with Spanish Fort growing so fast, tremendously, with Daphne growing as fast as they can. This area is a hotbed for good people to come here. They're coming for the right reasons. You're not coming to a big city to say, I'm going to Mobile because I'm going to try to make millions of dollars in Mobile. That's probably generally just not going to happen. You're coming here to say, I'm coming down there to set up a family and try to get to the right area. And if I'm picking the right area, where am I going to pick to have access to so much of the industry going on in Mobile and so much of, even looking in Baldwin County, a lot of industry going on here and a lot of efforts being made here. So I think that's why it's growing so fast, because once you come down here and you look and you're like, wow, that weather's not too bad. That's not a bad view from my back porch. That's not something going on here. So people come down here and they just stay.
Yeah. There's no doubt. It's a great place to live, great place to raise a family for sure. So whenever you decide to move on to your next thing, or your tenure as the state representative for District 96 is over, what do you want to look back and see that you've accomplished during your time?
I've had to have plans in the past where I've had all this point A to point B to point C to point D, where you draw a line and you say, this is my goal to be here in 3 years, or I want to be in this office or this office. And then something small happens, and it's a butterfly effect, and it changes everything that goes on. Right now, I have a daughter that just turned 8 and a son that's about to turn 13. There is nothing else that I want to do than to make sure that I'm home for them during their time of high school. I'm not looking to run for a statewide office while they're down here, because I don't want to miss that time. The effort that goes into having to run statewide, I had a good friend of mine, State Representative Matt Friday, who just ran for a Court of Civil Appeals. And he won a statewide race. And we've sat down and talked about it. And he's got 5 young girls. Oh, he's got a boy too. And he was saying, it's a year of your life that's away. It's a year of your life that you're not there. You're traveling all over, and the ambition is wonderful, and the ambition is there. But at the end of the day, I'm just a guy to the people of Alabama. I understand that, even in the seat I am now. Yeah. I'm just a guy. To my son and my daughter and my wife, I'm a responsibility to them. And I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And that's something, we've talked about, Marina and I talk about, is it's being there on the weekends and being there to see the tennis matches and being there to go to the baton twirling and being there to have these things. Those are memories that you'll never get back. Mm-hmm. I understand it's a little optimistic to me to say, hey, maybe in 10 years I'm looking at another office. But I want to be in the moment where I am right now, because a lot of times, especially in politics, you have people that vote or behave a certain way because they're trying to look for that next office. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're looking at not what does this bill do or what does this legislation do to help the people. They're looking at saying, oh, well, if I vote for this, then that means I should have these people's support. So that means these people can support me later on. And it's that 3D chess that it's where people get lost. Yeah. Because if you're looking to try to make people happy for the spot that you want to go to, you're not focused on what's the job that you're supposed to do right now. Yeah. I know that's a long-winded answer to run around and say, I don't know. I want to be the best I can be at the position I have. I'm very happy that I have opportunities to be with my family. We're in Montgomery 4 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. I took this job, and when I ran, I was telling my wife, I was like, listen, I'm only in Montgomery on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and that's only about 4 months out of the year. I'm here the rest of the time and can do that. That's not it at all. That's not this job at all. There's constant meetings. There's constant, you have to go to this, you have to go to this, you have to be around at this. And so I've been able to adapt my schedule enough in the past 2 years, 3 years if you consider the candidacy where you run for that campaign, mm-hmm. to still put the first thing first, put the most important mm-hmm. thing in most important. And so I'm not ready to try to change that yet. Now, maybe in 10 years when my daughter's in college and I'm just an afterthought to them as well and they're enjoying that, maybe we'll talk about doing something in the future. But right now I just want to focus on where I am and what I can do. And you speak of leadership, and I know this is a leadership podcast, so I'll talk about it. A lot of times if you look and you make yourself focused on a calendar or you focus on a goal and you evaluate and say, well, 5 years ago, I said I was going to be doing this, or 10 years ago, I said I was going to be doing this. You may have missed an opportunity. You may not be evaluating yourself for how much you're growing. If you're better today than you were yesterday, you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a win. I mean, and progressive improvement, I think, is a big one in our firm and for me personally, for sure. I think that I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question, but let's just talk about the state of politics in general today. And I don't want to get too political here, but just the political discourse in this country is like nothing I have ever seen before. Why is it so nasty? I think the civility that used to maybe be there has somewhat gone out the window, and I don't think it's one party's fault or the other necessarily. I think there's enough blame to go around. But I mean, what's your take? I'm just interested to hear on kind of how we got where we are now. And I mean, is there any way to kind of turn back and get away from some of this mess we're in?
Boy, I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I'm one of those optimists that it's just, I hope so. Yeah. I hope we can get back. People that are intelligent can have a different view on something. That doesn't mean somebody's stupid. That doesn't mean somebody's evil.
Right.
Nobody talks to each other anymore. There's no discussion back and forth and be like, hey, I see your point on that issue. There's just yelling at each other. Mm-hmm. The social media is an aspect of that. I have never seen anyone change their political opinion, thoughts, process ever by anybody's Facebook post.
Right.
Agreed. You get in that echo chamber of some people think you're right and they'll get you that like and you feel great about it. Some people think you're an idiot and now you're fighting and now you're not friends with somebody. It's so weird. I try not to post anything political on Facebook. It's just weird being in politics, not to talk that way. Yeah. Because I know what I know. I know what I feel. I know what life experiences I have and what my thought process is. There are people that have different life processes than me. There are people that grew up different than me. There are people that have all types of problems that I don't know about. And if I just go in and I'm just like, this is the way it is, I think we've gotten away from an aspect of, I want it to be okay to learn. Mm-hmm. In politics, it's not okay to learn anymore. It's not okay to say, you know what, I did feel that way, 10 years ago. I did feel that, but I've researched this, or I've kind of seen differently. I've seen a larger world now, and maybe I don't feel that same way. Well, then it becomes, well, you just flip-flop. You're just doing this from what you can. Right. There's nothing wrong with growing, and there's nothing wrong with learning from someone. I try to reach out and go to dinner, invite friends over who don't think like me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this in the best way, and I'm talking solely in the political way. I'm not talking, we're so segregated where we are now. As far as you move into a neighborhood of people that think like you move into a neighborhood of people that act like you go to church with people that act like you go to social media and follow the people that act like you go to wherever you are, and you're surrounded and you're in this bubble of this is what it is. You don't hear that outside voice. And so it becomes an us versus them situation. You look at our country is so much stronger when we're together. We may not agree on everything. We may not agree on how to get to the goal. But right now, I promise you, it feels like if you say, do you have what's in the best interest of America at heart? There are many people that would say, well, the people on the other side don't.
Right.
We can't come at that aspect. We can't come from that frame of mind to be like the other side is the enemy. And if you don't vote like I vote, then you're evil. Ronald Reagan has a quote, and I tell people all the time, my 80% friend is not my 20% enemy. Okay. Yeah. So if somebody's going to agree with me on 80% of the issues, I don't want to focus on that 20% and that be the defining point of our relationship. You can say this person, oh, they voted against me on this bill, or they thought this way on a bill. I'll be honest with you. I'm not right 100% of the time. I don't agree with my wife 100% of the time. Those other times are the times I'm wrong, and she lets me know. But I don't agree with my wife on 100% of the issues. That doesn't mean that we're bad people or she's bad, and we don't sit down and have that conversation anymore to say, I see where you're coming from. Yeah. That light has gone off, and I understand why you're trying to do it. It's not because you're evil. It's not because you're crooked. It's not because you're this. It's just because you have a different mindset than me. And it doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you're different. And we don't have those conversations in politics anymore. You have to run to the side that, oh, well, you better vote like this, because if you vote like this, you're a real Republican. Or if you vote like this, you're a Republican in name only, and we're coming after you for that. And I'm talking about the party I'm a part of. I don't want to talk about the other party, because I want to talk about, clean your own house up first.
Right, yeah. I totally agree, and I think that it's a shame that we have reached a place in this country where we don't think that we can be friends or even be civil to someone who has different political, social views, you name it, than we do. And so I think you're spot on there. And so hopefully you're right. I'm optimistic as well that it'll get better. I don't know when, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. I'll tell you that. So let's talk about books and podcasts real quick. I know you did a lot of reading in law school. Do you have a book or an author or a podcast you can point to that maybe has had an impact on you, or that you just enjoy listening to or enjoy reading for our listeners?
I really enjoy biographies.
Okay.
I read up a lot on the presidents and watch a lot of documentaries on the presidents and what they went through. What I'd like to follow, and I'm telling you, it makes me sound like a nerd, but PBS has this American Experience show, and I love that stuff. I love seeing the atmosphere of what's going on at the time, how that is framed then versus how that's framed now. And you watch some of this stuff, and you see some stuff before you were born, and I watched stuff on FDR, and you see Truman, and you see how it's phrased now. And that's interesting to me to learn that side of it, because it's jumped out from the page. And so I can see this. Like, I'm reading a lot on Harry Truman right now.
Okay.
But also to see how things are framed that weren't that long ago. So you see, it's like a 4-hour show on George W. Bush. You see stuff on President George H. Bush. You see stuff on President Reagan. And you see, okay, that was different how I felt at the time. One of the things, President Clinton had one. Watch the ones on President Clinton. I like to watch things that I don't believe in, just so that way I can see what the other people are thinking. So you watch Clinton, and you're like, I remember that. That's not how I remember this being portrayed. That's not how I remember this happened. And President George W. Bush talked about, history is going to make the mind up as to what happens. Right. How it's written and how things are going to be. It's not going to be in that day and that next day's newspaper. It's 10, 15 years down the line to make the determination as to whether or not you made the right decision on things. I'm really just a history buff on some of that stuff. Podcast, I listen to like Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire stuff. I listen to a lot of, FM Talk 106.5, Jeff Poor podcasts. I like to catch up on the local stuff there. Capital Journal in Montgomery is a lot of stuff that they have. Alabama Daily News. Todd Stacy has a In the Weeds podcast that I go up to. It's my responsibility to be up to date on current issues and figure out what's going on. I don't want to get up to Montgomery and be like, what? Yeah, what's going on? So I try to keep up with current issues on stuff like that. But if I'm just relaxing, if I'm just trying to get away from it all, I'll pull up something on history and watch something on something like that and try to learn these issues.
I got it. Well, good. So along those same lines, and let's open it up to not just presidents, but really any politician. It could be dead or alive. So if I gave you the opportunity to have dinner with one politician, since you're in politics, who would you like to have dinner with, and then what would you serve? What would you serve for dinner?
I would love to have dinner with Ronald Reagan. That would be the dream. That's who I look up to. You see how things happened. You see how things got done. You see how empowering he was to the people that were involved in his administration and try to do that. You see how we were able to get through so much. I'm a less government guy. I believe that, government causes more problems than it fixes generally. Yeah. So to be there, and that philosophy is there. If we're talking politics, that's who I would, dead or alive, would be Ronald Reagan. Also, I'd love to see George Washington. My kids are big fans of the Hamilton musical. Can't tell you the number of times we listen to the soundtrack or watch the movie. You see some of the stuff that's going on. And George Washington specifically talked about it in his farewell speech about the two-party system and how the two-party system could be the downplay of America. America is going to eat itself. And he sees that. If it's going to fail, it's going to fail from within. It's not going to fail from the outside. And you see what the framers, I've read a lot about the framers, about Jefferson and Washington, and then you look at Franklin and what they intended and how far off we are from what they intended it to be and where we've gone. I'd love to have that conversation with them. Yeah. Just absolutely love to have that conversation and see how do we get back to what the big picture was, where it's not this interpretation of, you can expand the law. I understand the thought of the Constitution as a living, breathing document and all that. But at the end of the day, words are words and words have meaning. And you should apply the meaning that those words as they were written, not as what you want them to be. And I think we've gone so far away from the Constitution that it's caused some problems where we are. Now, what would I serve? Oh, man, my wife's going to kill me about this.
This ought to be good.
The best restaurant is Dock Seafood in Orange Beach. Okay. The fried shrimp at Dock Seafood is absolutely incredible. And I'm supposed to be trying to watch my diet. I'm supposed to be looking weight. But if I'm driving past and I have time, I cannot not go in Dock Seafood in Orange Beach.
Well, I think Reagan and Washington probably would be on board with that, so that's good. And look, you mentioned two of my favorite things. I love Ronald Reagan too. I've always he's just always kind of intrigued me, and I read a lot about him. And then my daughter, who's 18 years old in Auburn, is obsessed with Hamilton. She's seen it one time live, and she's got the soundtrack memorized. And so as soon as they open in New York, we're going back to see it again. So that's good stuff. All right, let's play a little this or that.
Okay.
All right, and before I do this, do you have like a website or something for your house?
Yeah, I have a website. is VoteMattSimpson.com. That's VoteMattSimpson.com. Also on Facebook, you can find me at Rep Matt Simpson. I'm on Twitter at Matt Simpson. You'll pick up a theme here. It's all with names. Instagram is Rep Matt Simpson. And
all right, here we go. Let's play a little this or that. Cookies or cake? And not a good question to ask if Marina's listening. I mean, this is just purely hypothetical.
Purely hypothetical. I'm going cookies.
All right, cat or dog?
Dog.
Pop music or rock music?
Pop music.
All right.
I just lost a bunch of voters right there by saying pop music, but I'm going to be honest.
Text message or phone call?
Text message all day.
All right. Library or museums?
Library.
Summer or winter?
Is there a difference in South Alabama?
That is the exact same thing Lee Lawson said. So this is a relative winter. So our winter or our summer?
Our summer it can't be beat. It can't be beat.
No doubt. All right. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
All right. Phone or computer?
It's the same thing now, right?
Yeah, that is true. Superman or Batman?
Ooh, Superman.
All right. Facebook or Twitter?
I'm a Twitter guy.
All right. Fruits or vegetables?
Marina's listening. I'm going to say vegetables.
Smart man. Burgers or tacos?
Tacos. That's a good question.
All right. I like it. Bagels or toast?
Toast.
No self-respecting Southern boy's going to say bagel.
No. Now you say donuts in there. That's a whole other quiz. That's a whole other level.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Alaska or Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Excellent. Matt, thanks so much. This has been great. Learned a lot about you, and I appreciate the work that you do. I'll say it again, it's a noble calling, and you do the residents of Baldwin County well, so we appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Avizo Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avizogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.